Krakow, Poland. Very interesting history. The earliest village in the area was archaeological ruins from up to 50,000 years ago, which is intense. And also found around 300 AD, different tribes of Neolithic people. 2400 to 2400 BC, Celts, Germanic, Lusitanian cultures came to the region, trading with Celts in the Roman Empire during those times from 400 BC to 500 AD. So there was a settlement here all those times. But Slavic people started coming around this area, which Polish are, including Russians, around 1500 years ago. The great European migrations of the Dark Ages after the fall of the Roman Empire. The Polish organized into many tribes, documented by Bavarian geographers all over present-day Poland, and they organized here in Krakow. Before that, the city, though, was established by a dragon slayer story, could have some truth to it. A man named Krakus, around 600 AD, and had a daughter named Wanda that are buried in mounds in the town, is the mythical, but I think true, founder of the story. A king that was pagan. They had a dragon that lived in a cave nearby, and he, by poisoning the dragon with a sheep when other knights were trying to kill it, killed the dragon and founded the city, Krakow, named after Krakus. Very interesting story. So it was a tribe called the Vasulians capital around the 1700s. Area in the 800s was ruled by Moravians, were Czech people, and then sometime by Bavarians, southern Germans, ruled the area. Nonetheless, the city in 966 AD was first mentioned as Krakow. 966 AD. The first Polish king was Christianized in 966 AD by influence from the Pope and people from nearby Catholic areas to organize the Polish people. I believe that is him right there. I'm not big on names of kings and glorifying exact people, so we won't get into that. But let's keep going. This is the spot where the city was first established, 966 AD. When the city was freed from Bohemian rule. 1038, it became the new Polish capital, and the castle, which we're going to visit, was built. The Poland regions had infighting of territory among all the heirs until about 1320, but the city remained important as the capital. However, there were major Mongol invasions, 1241, 1259, and 1287, which heavily damaged the city, but some of it survived, which exists today. In 1285, because of the Mongol battles, the fortifications of the outside walls of Old Town, which we're in right now, the center of, was built. 1364, the city rose to prominence as a great cultural city of arts, wealth, and more. As universities were established, it was a multicultural city of Poles, German-speaking people, Yiddish, Jewish, Ukrainian, Czech, Italians, many others. The Polish-Lithuanian dynasty lasted from 1386 to 1572. Near the end of this time, it actually was a primarily German-speaking city, which is interesting. It happened to a lot of places around here. So the lands of Poland were in the hands of many nobles around this time in agricultural business of mostly grain, and had the common people in villages were something called serfs, which is a slave-like existence where you don't make a lot of money. My ancestors probably lived a life like that, which is probably why the golden age of Krakow existed, because of that cheap labor. Hey, nice shirt, California. So that's a sad thing about history is, a lot of times when great cities are built up and universities and arts and cultures, it comes on the backs of other people suffering, which we've seen time and time again in history. So that was the end of the golden era and the end of this video, the first half of Krakow history. So not the oldest market in all of Europe. We're in the center of the city. The golden era, we learned, was a very nice time, but all things come to an end like that. So in 1655, there was a Swedish invasion of Krakow, which pillaged the city. The Black Death also came here, which ravaged all of Europe, killing many inhabitants. Black Death was a bad thing, and Krakow suffered greatly from it. And your phone just shut up again. Okay, so back to the story. Krakow actually developed the second ever free constitution after the United States in 1791 for a brief that lasted, because the next year in 1772 was the first and second partitions of Poland, which the powerful countries of Russia, Prussia, and Austria-Hungary Empire decided to take Poland and carve it up amongst themselves, which lasted for a long time. At first, the Prussians, whose capital was in Berlin, ruled a lot of area, looted the city, but the city stayed a Polish city-state during that time. Austria, in 1795, the third partition happened and took over this region. It was then a part of Austrian-Hungary Galicia Empire state. So the Polish state was split between Prussians, Austrian, and Russia, which right now we're in the Austrian portion. The citizens of Krakow actually preferred the Austrians over Prussians and were often loyal subjects to the Austrian Galicia kingdom, which many of my ancestors were born in. From my mother's side, they were likely serfs before this. The Austrians, wanting to get Polish nobility less power, sought better treatment for the serfs in villages, where my ancestors were from, inciting rebellion and eventually outlawing the practice in the 1800s. So serfdom was ended by the Austrians also. 1809 to 1815, actually, during the Napoleonic Wars, Krakow had a brief independent state thing going on that was not Austria, but after the Napoleonic Wars, the city returned to Austria. The city walls that were built to repel the Mongols that we learned about were demolished by the Austrians after the Napoleonic Wars to make sure that the city was not used as a defensive place ever again. In 1830, awesomely, I like this actually, a park was created by the Austrians on the spot of those former walls. But a few years later, 1846, 1848, revolutions and uprisings for independence were put down in the region. And also another one of my ancestors, Matthias Supan, who was from the Austria-Hungary Empire, fought in those wars before he left for America. Especially after 1866, there was the Austro-Prussian War where the city suffered greatly, but it was kind of granted an autonomy. A little bit louder. Austrian rule actually was more lenient compared to the Prussian and Russian occupations of the city. And unlike other areas of Poland, this city always was a symbol of Polish nationalism, unlike other areas where that was not received as well by Russians and Prussians. Hey, nice shirt, San Francisco. So, we're getting close to the present time now. World War I, the Russians actually sieged the city during World War I when Russia was a part of the Allies. Austria-Hungary was on the side of the Germans in those times. The Polish were kind of caught in the middle, but actually a Polish legion fought to retake the city as part of the Austro-Hungary Empire, which is an interesting battle. But we all know which side won the World War I, so the city was actually liberated from Austrian control as a part of the Versailles Treaty in 1918. And it once again created the Polish state, which hadn't existed for many years since 1795, 1772. The capital was not here anymore, though. It was in Warsaw. Then another sad part, but recent history. 1939, Nazi Germany invaded. But heroically, the mayor of Krakow saved the city by stopping the violence and having the bombing and shooting not occur through some, hey, nice shirt, California again, through some through some amazing diplomatic talks. Who knows how that worked out? That usually didn't happen in 1939. So what we have here today, survived World War II, which is very rare for the region. The Nazis also wanted it to be an administrative capital for their new state, so they also didn't want to damage the city for that reason, which it, under occupation, was from 1939 to 1945. Still a functioning city, but many awful things, of course, occurring, especially to the Jewish population and forced extradition to concentration camps of many people, not just Jews. Very sad recent history. After that, the Soviet army came in, and the Nazis originally planned to destroy the city while fleeing, but didn't have enough time. Thankfully. So again, the city survived little damage. Only a few bridges were damaged and a couple houses, I think. Not even around this area, the middle of the historic city. So the Soviet-controlled People's Republic of Poland lasted from 1945 to 1989. A pope was here in 1978. Became the pope from Poland. We talked about him. And Kazimierz, the Jewish quarter, and Old Town, which we're in right now, became also in 1978 UNESCO World Heritage Site, which I'm a huge fan of. And now we're here today on the spot where my great-grandparents were from, on my mother's side. Rest in peace, Grandma Dolores Gorak, 2019. That's the history of Krakow. Yes.